My fiancé's little canary cornered me and demanded answers. She said Luis once grounded a plane just for her, canceled a $1 billion deal for her. Then she looked me in the eye and asked, "What do you even mean to him?" What do I mean to him? I mean, I'm your damn father. Chapter 1. It's been half a month since I last saw my fiancé, and the rumors are spreading like wildfire. Even while I'm standing on the street waiting for a ride, I hear strangers gossiping. Did you hear? Someone actually grounded a plane the other day. You're late to the news, Luis. The heir of that huge corporation got into a fight with his girlfriend and lost it. Wow. Must be some girl to be treated like that. The word slapped me across the face like an invisible hand from the sky. I shut my eyes, pushing down the boiling rage in my chest. The driver finally arrived, and judging by my expression, he broke into a nervous sweat. But I had no energy to scold him. My mind was entirely consumed by Luis. Tonight, Ryan was hosting a dinner, one of those obligatory circle gatherings. He practically begged everyone to attend in the group chat. Luis didn't respond, but he didn't decline either. I fixed my expression and walked into the restaurant. Even if I was pissed at Luis, now wasn't the time for drama. That could wait. Luis might not care about his reputation, but I do. As I reached the private room, I heard Joel's loud voice booming from inside. That girl's a model. Luis follows her around the globe. She ran off to the UK recently after a spat, and Luis canceled several meetings just to chase her. I even heard he waited in line with her at a milk tea shop for 2 hours. I tuned it out, expressionless. I pushed the door open. Joel immediately shut up. Sis-in-law. I gave him a slight nod in return. This dinner was just a private gathering of insiders. There were only 8 seats total. Ryan, the host, and Joel, the loudmouth, were already seated. 4 others were lounging on the sofa playing cards. Only Luis was missing. After some small talk with Ryan, Luis finally arrived. Half a month apart, and he still looked the same, elegant and composed. He took the seat beside me and, as usual, prepared my utensils with practiced care. Not at all like the version of him Joel had just been bragging about, risking it all for that girl. I gave him a sideways glance, the fire in my chest slightly soothed. But I didn't expect, halfway through the meal, the door knocked again. A woman walked in, dressed half in a mascot costume. She had on cat ears and the most provocative fishnet stockings, a short skirted uniform, her face hidden behind a realistic mask. The effect was subtle yet wildly suggestive. The moment she appeared, I saw Luis freeze beside me. The tension in him was immediate. Whoa, where'd this little kitten come from? Hotel entertainment? Joel, as usual, couldn't help himself. He wouldn't actually do anything in this setting. But his mouth always needed attention. The cat girl looked nervous, but her eyes stayed fixed on Luis. Her voice trembled. Today is our store's anniversary, and we're randomly inviting one male guest to participate in an event. A little flirting was fine, but participating in front of us? That was humiliating. Even Joel fell silent. Ryan looked pissed. A proper dinner and this nonsense? He pulled out his phone to call the restaurant manager. Just when the girl looked like she was going to break down, Luis stood up. I'll join. And just like that, he left, half holding her, without so much as glancing in my direction. It happened too fast. By the time people reacted, the door had already shut behind them. The room fell dead silent. Everyone turned to look at me. I calmly picked up my chopsticks and reached for the untouched braised pork knuckle. This dish is quite nice. After I spoke, everyone let out a collective sigh. Joel chimed in nervously. It is good. Sis, you should eat more. You've gotten skinnier lately. I set my chopsticks down. The dish is good, but I don't like it. The air froze again. I didn't feel like sitting through the rest of the dinner. I stood up and said calmly, I'll leave first, and then walked out. Chapter 2. I called Luis. He hung up on me. I stared at the text message he sent. Lily, I have an emergency. I sneered. An emergency? Playing cosplay with some girl counts as an emergency now? Luis and I have known each other for 16 years. Calling us childhood sweethearts wouldn't be an exaggeration. When I turned 18, our families took the natural next step and arranged an engagement. It was a classic power match, and Luis never objected. But the moment he pulled the whole true love stunt, that's when things got ridiculous. I went straight to his grandfather and ratted him out, and with a little added spice from me. The old man was so furious he started coughing uncontrollably. After that, I didn't see Luis for a long time, but I heard he got beaten by his grandpa, lost half his projects, and any gossip about him and his little sweetheart disappeared. My family was satisfied with that outcome. What I didn't expect, though, was that someone else wasn't. Every month, I host a party to build connections and offer everyone a place to network. This month's party was on a yacht. I usually don't bother with the guest list, that's my assistant's job. But somehow, Luis's little girlfriend snuck in. There was a small bar on the boat. A few of my close girlfriends and I were watching the latest boy band idol perform on stage. Young, barely in his 20s. But those sparkling eyes were full of starry ambition even in a place like this. I was fully immersed in the show when a tall woman stepped right in front of me. It only took one look for me to recognize her. The catgirl from that night, Luis's precious mistress. She looked down at me, lips tightly pressed, an arrogant and proud glint flashing in her eyes. I blinked. What the hell? Who are you? You're in the way. Can't you see? Alice, always hot-tempered, had been enjoying her boy band moment. She was a hair away from shoving the girl aside. Then came that haughty voice. I'm Rita. Alice glanced at me, as if asking, do you know her? I shook my head. She looked at the others, same response. Alice stood up, pissed, and shoved Rita. You nuts? Who the hell even are you? Security. Get this chick out. Alice didn't use much force, just enough to make Rita stumble. But Rita wasn't some delicate little flower. She lashed out and pushed Alice to the ground. I massaged my temple. Alice wasn't the type to lash out at every insult. But she definitely held grudges. This wouldn't be forgotten. Sure enough, my other girlfriends stood up. Alice grabbed a wine bottle, ready to swing. Just as she was about to pounce, Rita raised her chin and spoke. Lily, if something happens to me on your turf, Luis won't let you off. Her voice was confident and proud. Like she absolutely believed what she said. I wasn't afraid of Luis, and I certainly didn't think Luis would turn against me for her. But I still stopped Alice. Letting her get into it with Luis would be a bigger problem. If they have beef, they can settle it after they get off this boat. Rita had clearly come here for me. After sending Alice and the others away, I finally faced her directly. She stood her ground, taller than me by half a head. Slim, striking, honestly, not Luis's usual type. Luis doesn't love you. I smiled. And? She seemed surprised by my reaction and hesitated. It's all because of you. He got beaten by his grandfather. His career's a mess, and you can still act like nothing happened? I looked her right in the eyes. My words sharp and deliberate. Everything that's happened to Luis is his own damn fault. If he doesn't have the ability, maybe don't cheat. Chapter 3. The word cheating hit Rita like a slap. Her expression twisted. Her reaction sharp and immediate. You and Luis are just a business arrangement. Luis didn't cheat. I smiled, calm and unbothered. I'm the fiancé personally approved by every elder in the family. Our engagement photo is still hanging at the headquarters. And you? You slept with my fiancé. What would you call that? Miss Mistress? Rita flushed red, then pale. Her chest heaved with anger. I leaned lazily back on the sofa, no longer looking at her. My gaze drifted past her, falling instead on the boy still singing and dancing on stage. I'm already an international model, she said through clenched teeth. I earn 6 figures a month on my own. I'm better looking, more talented. You're just lucky you were born into the right family. You act like some pampered socialite, but only I deserve someone like Luis. I burst out laughing. You're indeed quite impressive. But in Jingnan, gold is everywhere. You're gold. Sure, so is that boy on stage. I pointed toward the young man, shining like a star on stage. But me? I own the gold mine. I didn't care how ugly her face turned. I continued calmly. How much do you even love Luis? Really? If you loved him that much, you wouldn't be standing here confronting me. You've only had a taste of high society and now want to stay in it. But you picked the wrong person to challenge. Your talent and Luis's affection mean absolutely nothing to me. Power and money don't transfer like a disease. Social class isn't something you can sleep your way into. The only reason you're standing here today is because of Luis. If Luis weren't my fiancé, you wouldn't even qualify to speak to me. Rita stood there trembling, her face pale, lips pressed into a thin stubborn line. She looked both furious and humiliated. I rarely speak so harshly, but I was sick of this whole circus. Luis didn't know where the line was, and now his mistress had the nerve to show up in front of me? What a joke. You can't call it true love when you pick up your chopsticks for a meal, then put them down and chase passion. I stood up and dusted off my skirt, as if she were nothing more than lint. Miss Rita, you enjoyed riding around in that fancy car with the 88888 license plate, didn't you? Luis didn't tell you? That's the engagement gift from my family. And just like that, I shattered the last piece of pride she had. Their so-called love had taken the city by storm. They paraded around Jingnan in that limited edition Bentley with the iconic plate. Rumors even claimed Luis was going to defy his family for her. But I knew better. He didn't have it in him. I walked out to the deck. Even though I've hosted countless of these events, I rarely make appearances myself. Most of the time, I stayed inside with a few close friends, or napped on the private bed in the cabin. This wasn't about partying, it was business. Even at my own event, getting me to show my face was rare. I walked up to the first officer who was leaning against the rail. Stop the boat. He looked confused. Turn it around. And just like that, I clicked my heels and walked back inside. The daughters of powerful families watched every step I took. Honestly, I could have just messaged the captain, but I did this for a reason, to let everyone know, I'm pissed. My fiancé's mistress had the gall to confront me at my event, and I was supposed to just carry on? What face would my family have left? The next morning, the housekeeper knocked on my door. Miss Lily, someone from the Luis family is downstairs, and then added, Madam said you don't need to hurry. Take your time coming down. So I rolled over and went back to sleep. Chapter 4. By the time I came downstairs, it was already noon. A man was sitting on the sofa. I narrowed my eyes. It wasn't Luis. It was his second brother, Kevin, the illegitimate one. The moment he saw me, Kevin jumped to his feet. Miss Lily, Luis had an emergency and had to leave. I didn't show any annoyance. I simply nodded and sat on the sofa. Kevin, seeing I wasn't going to respond, tried to act ingratiating. Luis, you know how he is. A friend sprained their ankle or something, he rushed off. Miss Lily, please don't be upset. I smiled faintly and changed the subject. Mr. Kevin, you've waited quite a while. Would you like to stay for lunch? Kevin immediately nodded like a bobblehead. I got up and told the maid, ask Mr. Kevin what he'd like, and show him to the dining room. I have other matters to attend to. Mr. Kevin, please make yourself at home. With a slight nod, I walked past him, his face likely twisted into something unsightly behind me. But I didn't care. In this strategic engagement between two powerful families, Luis and his family were already out of the game. In Jingnan, there are only a handful of elite families. When we got engaged, Luis was the top choice. Strong background, excellent upbringing, bright future. But just 6 months after our engagement, his family suddenly acknowledged an even older illegitimate son and a younger illegitimate daughter. Luis's parents' marriage fell apart. Scandal after scandal surfaced. Luis, once the most promising heir of the main branch, became just another pawn in the family mess. Even then, my family didn't break off the engagement. Until today, Luis ran off and left Kevin behind. He knew I'd never choose Kevin. Leaving him here was just a desperate attempt to save face. But I don't accept this consolation prize. Neither do my parents, or my brother. As I was having afternoon tea, news of the broken engagement had already hit every media outlet. I didn't even have to lift a finger. My parents were incredibly efficient. The article was long and official sounding, saying that the two families would remain business partners despite canceling the engagement. It subtly hinted at the reasons for the breakup. In no time, gossip sites dug up every last detail of Luis and Rita's love story. Some criticized them, but most praised them. I showed one of the headlines to my best friend. Luis grounded a plane for her. A billionaire-level romance. She's worth it. I sneered. If I remember correctly, I'm the official fiancé. That means she was still the mistress this morning, right? My friend shrugged. True love is never wrong. Apparently. How ridiculous. True love is never wrong. And the stars of this laughable romance had the audacity to show up at my house. Luis had lost weight. Rita was right behind him. His mother brought them both. I raised an eyebrow. What kind of stunt is this now? My mother was holding a teacup, her face dark with displeasure. Luis's mother, meanwhile, was all smiles. Ah, right. Luis's mother never liked me. No particular reason. Just the classic resentment some mothers have toward their future daughters-in-law. Now that the family scandals were public, her hostility toward me had only grown. Lily, come let Auntie take a good look. You've gotten even more beautiful. That outfit, what brand is it? It makes you look so delicate and charming, right, Rita? Delicate and charming? My face immediately turned black. Only years of etiquette training kept me from blowing up on the spot. My mother placed her teacup down with a loud crack. The jade teacup shattered under the force. Mom. Luis's disapproving voice rang out. Chapter 5. Luis's mother used to be a movie star in her younger years. Maybe obsession with romance runs in their genes. His father insisted on marrying her despite family opposition. But not long after their wedding, he cheated on her, and even brought back 2 illegitimate kids. Perhaps the love was too intense when they were young. Luis's mom could never accept it. People who live off love, once love is gone, they have nothing left. Her personality changed drastically. As if the world owed her something. She couldn't stand seeing others happy. And my family? Way too happy. The 2 families were joined in marriage. And people often compared my mom to her. Resentment had been brewing in her heart for years. Rita, completely oblivious to the tension in the room, chimed in. Yes, this outfit really suits Miss Lily. Clang! Before she could finish, my mom grabbed the teapot and smashed it at Rita's feet. Scalding hot water and loose tea leaves exploded alongside the broken porcelain, splashing right by her shoes. What trash thinks she has the right to comment on my daughter? The living room fell into a dead silence. Upstairs, I heard a door open. Moments later, my brother appeared at the railing, quietly watching the scene unfold from above. It was a tense, ugly moment. Rita stood frozen in fear. Luis closed his eyes tightly. Luis's mother, clearly affected by my mother's words, had her face turn red and pale in patches. Luis spoke up, still maintaining that gentlemanly composure. Auntie, I came today to apologize. It's my fault. You've known me since I was little. From now on, Lily is like my own sister. Even under pressure, he could still hold his head high. But before he could finish, a chuckle rang out from the second floor. Lily doesn't need a brother. Luis, if you're going to apologize, put some sincerity into it. Luis looked up. His gaze was heavy and dark. We'll postpone the launch of our next digital product by 2 weeks. I stared at my slippers, silent. Luis was looking at my brother, but I could feel my brother's eyes were on me. Seeing I gave no reaction, my brother finally said, slowly, not enough. The room plunged into silence again. Just as my patience began to wear thin, Luis finally spoke. I'll withdraw from the end-of-month project. I looked up and gave him a mocking smile. Wow, that's generous of you. Before he could respond, I leaned back into the sofa, looked at the shameless man in front of me and said, since you've brought your mother here to apologize, let's not waste time. Go ahead. Luis stood up. His mother, reluctant, followed. But Rita? Not having it. Lily, don't push it. Luis already made huge concessions. I smiled lazily at her. Then feel free to leave. Rita. Luis snapped coldly. She bit her lip and held back tears. Then stood up. Luis stood in front of me, his mother and Rita behind him. I watched the 3 of them formally apologize to me. How ridiculous. I really had underestimated Rita, overestimated Luis, and completely misjudged the power of being love-brained. He must have thought that offering a few sacrifices and an apology would be enough to sweep this under the rug. Well then, since love is that important, losing a few things shouldn't be a big deal, right? As they left, Rita was the last one out, her eyes red. She muttered, "I'll remember this humiliation today." I shrugged. Go ahead. If you can remember it your whole life, good for you. Chapter 6. Luis gave up some of his interests and reached an agreement with my brother so he wouldn't be pressured, allowing him to fully focus on his internal feud with Kevin. But even without my brother pushing him, without the support of my family, Luis, as the legitimate son, was already no match for the illegitimate ones. Rumor has it that Luis's grandfather was deeply disappointed in him after the broken engagement. Rita, on the other hand, was now officially recognized. Everyone in our circle knew Luis had gone against his family for her. And I became the joke. Of course, no one dared laugh at me to my face, but this was probably the first time anyone thought they could. Rita was clearly avoiding me, but Alice, in her usual chaotic way, ended up inviting both of us to the same party. She told me the boy from the last performance, the one with the starlight in his eyes, would be there. I was curious, but the moment I arrived, I saw Rita in a striking red dress, surrounded by a few C-list celebrities, laughing loudly, clearly enjoying the spotlight. I was about to leave when someone placed a hand on my shoulder. Alice leaned in and whispered, "I'm getting revenge for you tonight. Don't." Before I could stop her, Alice shook up a bottle of champagne and marched toward Rita. "Everyone, welcome the airplane door girl herself, Miss Rita. What an honor to have her grace us tonight." Her voice turned every head. Under the dim bar lights, Rita's face visibly flushed red. No one applauded. Instead, whispers spread like wildfire. "Well, if no one else is going to welcome her, I'll do the honors." Alice smirked. With that, the cork popped with a loud bang, and so did Rita's scream. The champagne sprayed all over her face and dress. Her once glamorous red gown now looked tacky and soaked. Her hair clung to her cheeks like wet seaweed. "Why so serious? Come on, clap." Alice clapped mockingly as everyone laughed awkwardly. It had nothing to do with me. Alice dragged me into it. I turned to leave, but just as I took 2 steps, someone grabbed me from behind. Gasps erupted. A bottle shattered. I felt warm liquid drip onto my shoulder. I looked up. Those starlit eyes again, this time, clouded with pain but still wearing a soft smile, with a dimple on his cheek. On the way to the hospital, I still couldn't understand Rita's logic. Alice embarrassed her, so why come at me? If Eric hadn't shielded me, I'd be the one with my head cracked open. Did she even understand the cost of doing that to someone like me? Eric was taken into surgery to stitch up his scalp. He was young, stayed conscious the whole time. I barely sat down in the waiting room when my parents and Alice's older sister arrived. My mom checked me from head to toe, and Alice's sister finally exhaled in relief. No need for me to call when something this big happens. They always know. Alice's sister came to apologize. I wasn't hurt, but I had been frightened, and it did start because of Alice. As for Rita, she and Alice were both taken to the police station. People like us usually settle things privately. It rarely escalates to an actual case. But according to my mom, Luis went to bail her out, and for the first time in ages, he lost his temper in public. Amidst his family feud, this was the last thing he needed. But Eric refused to settle. He insisted on pressing charges. That suited me just fine. I didn't show up again that very night. I took Eric, stitches still fresh, and flew us straight to Qatar. He took a hit for me. The least I could do was help him recover in style. Chapter 7. It had been a month since I returned to the country. Coincidentally, I ran into Luis and Rita at the airport. At this point, it really felt like they were haunting me. For a place as big as Jinan, what were the chances of a random encounter? It looked like they were here to pick someone up. Luis's eyes landed on the way Eric and I were holding hands. I glanced at Luis. Stripped of the wealth and privilege he'd been born into, he wasn't superior to Eric in any way. In fact, Eric was younger and in better shape. The moment Rita saw me, it was like she spotted her mortal enemy. The fury in her eyes nearly erupted into flames. She tried to lunge at me, but Luis held her back. "You bitch. Lily, so what if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth? You're just a daughter. You don't even have the right to use that license plate with the 5/8. You think you're so noble? Luis told me himself, "You're just a tool for a marriage alliance." Luis's face darkened. His girlfriend yelling like a market shrew in public must have been hard to keep that poker face. I let out a light laugh. "Rita, when you occupy a position, you fulfill its responsibilities. Not everyone gets to be like Luis, shamelessly complaining about the job while still expecting to eat at the table. I may need marriage, but I don't need love. Let me give you some advice. Luis's mother is your warning. You." Rita was speechless, while Luis stayed silent from beginning to end. Of course, she wouldn't believe me. Love is more intoxicating than power, but when the passion fades, how many can hold on to their so-called true heart? She's currently out on bail and has to report to the police station daily. I ignored them and walked past. Just as I brushed shoulders with Luis, I heard him call out, "Lily, how have you been lately?" I froze. Even when we didn't see each other for months, Luis never once asked me how I was. I turned slightly and looked him in the eye. Calmly, I replied, "None of your damn business." Then I tugged Eric along and walked away. Behind me, Rita let out a piercing scream. Scumbags really can't help themselves. We had originally planned to stay longer in Qatar, but my brother told me that the war within Luis's family had reached its peak, the perfect time for me to come back and fan the flames. Luis had reached an agreement with my brother, but not with me. My people had been tracking every move in his family. Right now, Luis had his grandfather's favor and the support of some collateral branches. Kevin, meanwhile, had their father backing him. Bribery, manipulation, everything was fair game now. Both sides were locked in a bizarre stalemate. So I threw gasoline on the fire. I used all the capital from Chihong and bet it all on Kevin. The day that news broke, our house phone didn't stop ringing. Both our families were industry giants. People wanted to know if we were backing Kevin. My parents had already vanished, and the housekeeper was the only one answering calls. I heard Luis went to see my brother. He walked out looking grim in less than half an hour. I could guess what was said, probably my brother doing his usual diplomatic dance. She's her, I'm me. Plenty of people had been itching to take a side, but no one dared. Choosing wrong could be deadly. Once I made the first move, companies rushed to follow. Luis's family descended into deeper chaos. His grandfather wanted to end the war, but it was too late. Everyone knew Kevin was incompetent, a true waste next to Luis, but no one was naive enough to care about the family's future. This was about taking a bite. After 2 weeks of infighting, Kevin actually started gaining momentum. Once I judged the time was right, I leaked the news that Rita had injured Eric with a wine bottle. Eric was at the peak of his fame. His fans were passionate, borderline rabid, and considering the recent online praise about Rita and Luis's great love story, the public went wild within minutes. The internet exploded. Before any PR could even spin it, Luis's family stock had already tanked. Turns out, Eric's fans were more terrifying than I imagined. While reading the headline, Luis and Rita swarmed by fans on the trending list, I felt an arm tighten around my waist. "Yeah, you can't just use me like that and not pay me back," Eric whispered, seductive as a fox. That faint scar on his forehead only made him more irresistible. His eyes, those eyes I liked so much, were filled with affection. How much of it was real? I couldn't say, but I didn't care. Chapter 8. I rubbed my sore waist inside. Ah, to be young, such a blessing. I secured 2 male lead roles for Eric. He was thrilled. And honestly, so was I. Eric is a smart man. He never acts like he's my boyfriend. Aside from being a bit wild at times, I'm quite satisfied with him. Luis's reputation had taken a nosedive because of Rita, and with Kevin pressing harder and harder, public opinion finally forced his grandfather to abandon him. Kevin became the heir. Once in power, Kevin immediately launched a purge of Luis's faction. It was a risky move, but for long-term control, there was no other way. Yes, it was my idea. Complaints echoed through the company. Many veteran executives were kicked out in utterly humiliating fashion. Luis's grandfather fell ill from rage, and Kevin completely lost all restraint. Suddenly granted overwhelming power, he wielded it like he owned the world. He gutted half the upper management, but those who rise too fast are doomed to fall hard. Sure enough, his debauchery caught up with him. Kevin was caught having sex in his office and taken away for investigation. I was sipping water when I heard the news and nearly choked on it. What a pathetic, useless man. My brother quickly handed me a tissue. Luis is already finished. He said, Lily, it's time to stop. I blinked at him. Brother, the game has just begun. He froze. My normally unshakable brother looked so stunned it was almost funny. You're serious? He thought I was only trying to get back at Luis. No one knew what I was really thinking. My brother knew I had ambition, but not that I was willing to drag Luis's entire family down with him. Even he had never dared dream of destroying them. I stretched lazily and smiled. Never underestimate a woman. From the beginning, I never wanted to marry Luis. But some things aren't up to what I want or don't want. Our engagement was about maximizing benefit. But if I could knock him out of the game, even better. Chi-hung took the lead in turning against them. Every bit of dirt I had on Luis's company was thrown out like it was free. With his grandfather unconscious and his father completely useless, Luis was dragged back to clean up the mess. But the executive board was entirely Kevin's. Luis was shackled at every turn, unable to stir even a ripple. The stock hit its limit down 3 days in a row. During those 3 days, Luis didn't sleep, trying every method to save the company. All in vain. Eventually, he chose to amputate the arm to save the body. He downsized dramatically. The damage was done, but he managed to keep the company alive. Everyone knew one thing now: his family would never rise again. There are no friends in business, only interests. And right now, his company was a bloody slab of meat, waiting to be devoured. I was the one who took the biggest bite. The day I snatched their core project, my brother threw me a celebration at our company headquarters. Work stopped. Tens of thousands of employees celebrated in my name. Since our founding, I was the first person to ever receive such an honor. A person only lives for a few shining moments. But for me, that moment will never be under the watchful gaze of some priest, whispering I do. After the party, my father gifted me a Rolls-Royce. I already had several in my garage, but this one was different. The black Rolls-Royce bore the 5/8 license plate, the iconic symbol of our family's son-in-law. But from now on, that license plate belongs to me, Lily. I don't need some so-called powerful union. I alone am enough. I love power. I love money. But above all, I love success. That euphoric feeling of standing above everyone else. I'm addicted to it. People like us, how could we ever be entangled in petty love? Well, except those with a romance brain. Extra Chapter 1. At a charity auction, I ran into Luis's older sister, Roxana. Back when Luis's family was still at its peak, Roxana was practically the queen bee of Jean-Nan's high society. Her maiden family was prestigious, and her husband's side held real power. But since their family's decline, Roxana hadn't shown up in public for over a year. Her cheeks were sunken, the dark circles under her eyes couldn't be concealed. At barely 35 or 36, crow's feet already lined her eyes. Clearly, she hadn't had an easy year. The company still barely clung to life. With less than 100 employees, Luis was running it now. Frankly, they owed this glorious downfall to Roxana. Maybe my gaze was too blatant, because Roxana turned and looked at me. The moment our eyes met, I saw her grip tighten, amused. I handed my auction paddle to Eric and asked the attendant to free up the seat beside her. When I swaggered over and sat down, Roxana's gaze darkened instantly. I must be the last person she'd want to see, setting aside the fact that I was the one who brought down her family. Just the current disparity between us was enough to make her grit her teeth for a lifetime. I settled in slowly, lips curved, and asked with a hint of mockery, "So, sis, how have you been lately?" Roxana's voice dropped, dripping with anger. "Don't call me that." She clenched her jaw, chin raised high, refusing to look at me, as haughty as ever. That family, they never knew their place. You're right. I shouldn't call you sis. After all, your current status. I looked her up and down, then smiled lightly. Doesn't qualify. You. She lost it. Even if I'm down and out, I'm still Mario's wife. Roxana couldn't hold her temper anymore. She stood up and pointed at me, full-on raging. I glanced at her husband Mario's ashen face and smiled dismissively before returning to my seat. She was left standing there, awkwardly catching the spotlight alone. If you want to pull the weeds, you'd better dig out the roots. She couldn't even protect her mother's family. I certainly wouldn't let her protect anything else. Our little exchange was just a passing interlude. Soon, I raised my paddle again and again for a jade pendant, until I won it for tens of millions, just to give it to Eric. The next day, media headlines screamed about how I spent a fortune for love. They all sang praises for our romance. It reminded me of that year when Luis grounded a plane for Rita. They, too, were the talk of the town, dramatic and unforgettable. Suddenly, it all felt so meaningless. I dialed Eric. Let's not contact each other anymore. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, he said one thing. Then I want the lead role in that new movie. Extra Chapter 2. The day Luis's company officially announced its bankruptcy. My Rolls-Royce with the 5/8 license plate pulled up at their office. A small, shrinking company now squeezed into a tiny storefront. Luis and Rita were both inside. Neither of them looked remotely proud. Once the golden boy of Nan, now just a forgotten name. Even his misery carried a hint of pathetic fragility. I, however, wanted to laugh. Laugh at the humiliation I endured back then. Laugh at how Luis ruined a hand of royal flush cards. Laugh at how love-brained fools are even more toxic than drugs. I'm the type to hold a grudge. For every ounce of harm you give me, I'll pay you back 100-fold. It's only a matter of time. The driver opened the door for me. My soft lambskin heels tapped against the red brick. The uneven ground annoyed me slightly. I pushed open the glass door. Luis was the first to notice me. He wore a plain black t-shirt and cargo pants. Skin tanned from the sun, but with none of the charm he used to have. His dull face held no light anymore. Rita looked slightly better, her shirt and slacks giving off a somewhat capable vibe. But rumor had it she'd long since stopped modeling to suffer alongside Luis. She gave up everything and became his woman behind the man. That same girl who once tried to prove she was a diamond on my yacht had now turned into a housewife. What are you doing here? Rita shrieked. I smiled and looked at Luis. He, inexplicably, took a few steps toward me, with disgusting tenderness. He said, Lily. I rubbed the goosebumps on my arms and took 2 steps back in disgust. Luis, clearly blind to the mood, kept walking toward me. I saw the news. You broke up with Eric, didn't you? Huh? Excuse me? Did this man get body snatched? Before I could react, Rita had already lunged at him, grabbing his sleeve with such force that the cheap black t-shirt tore on the spot. Yikes. You bastard. What? You want to crawl back to her now? Look at you. You think she'll take you back like this? Now that's more like it. I've been a damn maid to your whole family these 2 years. You heartless scumbag, stringing me along without even giving me a proper wedding. Don't think I don't know what you and your mother have been plotting. Still dreaming of marrying up. Huh? Rita was ferocious. In just a few tugs, Luis's shirt was completely ripped apart. Luis clenched his fists. His pride and dignity were shattered, right in front of me. Then, at the peak of her fury, Luis suddenly raised his hand and slapped her across the face. Smack. I instinctively covered my mouth. Holy sh**t. Did he just hit her? Luis yanked her by the hair. If it weren't for you, would I be this miserable? You're nothing but a curse. I was stunned. These were the same people who once vowed to love each other against all odds. Quietly, I stepped out of that pitiful little office and got back into my car, and I called the police on my way out. Thought it'd help. Before I came, I'd fantasized about saying something grand. Luis, the wealth your ancestors built over generations, the decades of grooming and expectation, you ruined it all. You've lost. But now? Forget it. Not worth the words.